Anapea wote boda boda. Kuna motorbike sita.
Oni wa media bana. Presi ndio hii baada amevaa.
Sita simu. Watauliwa bwana, hata mimi ndio nimekuona. Watauliwa bwana, hata mchezo.
Fanya hivi wewe kama alipo.
Ngani simu. Huyu anafanya kwa mheshimiwa Rama, umenielewa? Lakini tumemwekea backup na huyo jamaa.
Imefura. Pole bana.
Kijana hapa kuna vile chao.
Mimi nimejua ni yule jamaa, hata jamaa mrefu huyo.
Nimeona jake.
Unajua mimi nimeona nikasema ayeyeye. Nikakuja nikapanda na wewe. Huyu na wewe kapiga na wengine. Ndio tripod. Ngapi wamekuja tripod?
Baada tripod imesaidia.
Akasema
all right, our sign language gangster is Njoki Shege tonight. Now, ladies and gentlemen, those are scary scenes, Linus. I mean, it is 17 months to an election, and by the way, some of those came from a ward, you know, where the seat at stake was simply a ward seat, an MC being replaced.
Yes, it's a day of disgrace, no less, and this was supposed to be just a by-election involving small seats. There are not many. They have 2 parliamentary seats.
And that actually just means voting, is it?
It just means voting. And what we've seen today is very little elections, but we've seen a lot of drama. And it goes down to how politicians raise the stakes for these by-elections, because they are being seen in terms of an oiling machine, a test run for 2022. Some of them are testing their regional influence. Some are testing national influence. There's a new party also that is being tested now in UDA. And all these factors combined with the indiscipline, we have witnessed, to give us a very, very ugly day.
Yeah. Gashuri, you want to go, because I mean, honestly, if first of all there were the telltale signs. I mean, if you saw the way that all these people are flocking into these places to campaign, I mean, typically a by-election in some ward, even in our coverage, usually it's something you mention in passing that, oh yeah, you know, in addition to this and the other, there was also a ward by-election somewhere. But here, I mean, these have become very high stakes, and I am almost convinced that some people may not even have known who was running in those particular wards, and yet there were all these, you know, people we know nationally, you know, the members of parliament and that sort of thing. And that's all very well, but the violence, the chaos that we saw, it's terrible.
Plain and simple, these by-elections, the 6 of them in the 2 constituencies and the 4 wards, had nothing to do with replacement of the deceased members or representatives of those jurisdictions. It had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with, 1, BBI, the imminent referendum, and the 2022 State House succession race. Nothing else. I mean, look at what was happening during the campaigns. You would hear very little to do with what the constituents in Kabuchai or in Matungu or in London, Hellsgate, Huruma, London will benefit from their newly elected representatives, either in the county assemblies or in the National Assembly. Very little to do with that. But it had a lot to do with whether we should have BBI or not, whether a referendum is okay or not, who will replace President Uhuru Kenyatta in State House next year. That was the dominant vibe in those campaigns. And so when we saw violence today, it should not have been a surprise to anyone. But what surprised me most was that a lot of this violence happened, some of it, and a good amount of it, in the full glare of the law enforcers. Ordinarily, you expect that in an electoral process, that one of the reasons why we have police officers in polling stations is to ensure that, one, there is law and order in that polling station, and number two, that the voters and the electoral officers are protected. Did you see an electoral officer frog-marched with an officer watching? I mean, some things are unbelievable. So let's hope that those who are in office, those who are the relevant offices and officers, will take precautionary measures in under 16 months as we head to the general election. Because if this is what we are going to see in August 2022, particularly August 9th, 2022, then we have every reason as a country to be worried. And by the way, there's no one who is innocent in this. They all have a role to play. They all share a portion of the blame of what we saw today.
Joe, Gashuri speaks about the voter, the importance or not of the voter in these by-elections that we saw. And I remember a story that we did in the bulletin today of a mama who's over 80 years old in Kabuchai, and the fact that she went to the polling station to exercise her democratic right to elect a leader. And she explained that she wanted a leader who could bring a difference in her life and all that. And for her, that is the reason why she went to vote, and queuing and walking with her walking stick and going there. And it's sad that what she thinks or what she feels is not important, as Gashuri says, that was not the reason why people, the leaders were there to try and campaign. It was for their own selfish reasons. We talk about that. And number two, we're looking at how all this was happening, the full glare, not even just of police officers and security officials, of even cameras. We had journalists who were attacked, 4 of them. One of them, our own, Asiba in Nakuru, and he even had to go to a doctor and get treatment because they were attacked during the fracas that erupted in London Ward. But what I noticed was what some of the residents were saying in the instance where we had the 4 legislators, the senators and members of parliament being arrested in Kabuchai. They said they were protecting their vote. Tunajaribu kuprotect kura yetu, ni kura yetu, sasa tumesimama hapa. They are saying, oh, we will not allow them to come and take away our kura, tuna protect kura yetu. But that was what was happening in almost all the polling stations that we saw. And the instances of voter bribery, of even an MCA was arrested because he was dishing out money and face masks to voters. We had an instance where we had the former sports CS slapping a presiding officer at the polling station, and he was being tafutwad all over the place. And his reason was that they had not allowed their party agents to enter the polling station. There was another one where an agent was found talking to voters. There was another one where a woman rep was she was being told to leave because they are saying she's planning to bribe voters. All these things were happening in 6 by-elections, in 4 wards and in 2 maeneo bunge. And it worries me what we talked about when we were saying in the opening commentary that during the 2022 elections, we'll have this multiplied 290 times in the constituencies, or even more if the BBI proposals go through, and 1,400 wards, and it could be more if we have the BBI going through. So for me, I worry about how this will be replicated in 2022, and looking at these various instances that were all across the 6 places that had by-elections today, Joe.
Joe, a quick one. There's a clip on air now. Rashid Echesa, the former sports cabinet secretary, slapping an electoral officer.
Can you imagine that?
And what is surprising is that he even took time, removed the officer's mask, and slapped that officer. I mean, tells you the impunity, the audacity. Unfortunately, there are no consequences for electoral misbehavior. If there were, how comes from 2007, 2008, have you seen anyone who took responsibility or was punished severely for the violence that we witnessed in this country? None.
It's unthinkable. I mean, why he would actually think that he can do that and get away with it? I mean, this is the kind of thing that has to be absolutely worrying. I mean, Linus, you will recall that in 2007, we had telltale signs of this nature. I mean, violence was so normalized that, you know, whether it was during the nominations or people disrupting other people's rallies and that kind of thing. And so seeing something like this with less than 2 years, 1.5 actually, 17 months is less than 1.5 to the election, it has to worry us. But I think it probably comes down to what you have said sometime, I think, about just how people look at elections. I mean, why would people just going to vote be such a high-stakes thing? I mean, you would think that everybody leaves their home, you go and cast your ballot. At the end of the day, those things are counted. Someone wins, someone loses. And, you know, it is what it is, and everybody goes home. But that's not how we do it here.
Look, the standards have been falling since 2007, getting worse, going back to the way it used to work, or even worse. But today was a new law. New law in the sense that we've seen how political players and how administrators now moved into this to try and mainstream these bad manners. The first thing that has become part of our elections is violence, force, intimidation. And you will be amazed, political players take pride in that. They'll talk about it in a proud way. Uliona tuliwafukuza. In Kibra, there was violence in Kibra by election. And one of the MPs, Baraza Didmas, his cap was taken away. And what did Junet do in a press conference? He actually said that, you know, I have it, and I'll return it at some point. So it becomes a joke. You remember the former senator for Kakamega, Boni Khalwale, carrying stones. It becomes a meme. It's mainstream. It's accepted. He's a hero of sorts. This is a big problem. But the greater problem as well comes from the administration, the police. Because what we've seen today, obviously there was a lot of provocation as well from political players. But at some point, when you look at that footage, you will see no difference between the uniformed policemen and the people, the goons, or just mobs that are out there. That tells you a story. It tells you that the police are not really acting as independent umpires of the situation. They want things to go a certain way. And that is what was happening here in 2017. That is what happened in 2013 and happened in 2007, 2008. Remember, the bulk of the people, of the 1,300 that died, were actually killed by police bullets. And we've said here, I think right on this table, that Harambee House has a role in ensuring peaceful elections by not being a player, at all. Today, it is a big letdown on the part of the government and the administration that that lady was dragged by her hair, a very innocent election official. There is the Mr. Peter Okura, who was slapped by a chaser. That should not happen. The administration should protect the process.
It delegitimizes the commission, I mean, as an institution.
It does. It does. Yeah. So we, first of all, mainstreaming violence as part of our elections. There's something else that needs to be pointed out. Just look at 2013 and 2017. There is silent pride in political circles about the ability to interfere with the numbers, the ability to tinker with the tallying. You know, we produced ICT heroes in 2017 and 2013. We have a ruling from the Supreme Court that tells us that election results cannot be accounted for. Where are they coming from? A simple question that the Supreme Court asked. And look where we started today with the by-election. And we do this with a depleted IEBC. It's not even a full-strength IEBC. Can this IEBC run the election in 2022? And can it manage this, or will they all be slapped into some sort of result?
I think we need to take a break. We'll be right back because those are fundamental questions that we were trying to answer some of them when News Gang comes back in just a few moments.